are the possible risks that come with eyeball tattoos: decreased vision or complete blindness, retinal detachment, infection, ongoing inflammation, light sensitivity, feeling like something is in your eye all the time, and loss of the entire eye. But damn, they do look cool. Today we'll be talking about eyeball tattoos. We'll explore the origins, the successful procedures, and then go deeper into the horror stories that can come when it's botched. It gets a little sad and gross. Viewer discretion is advised. Eyeball tattoos are an absolutely insane thing to do, and in my opinion, there really is nothing good that can come from it. I mean, this is one of the most extreme forms of body modification, so if someone is really considering it and already headed down that path, then there's not much I can do to dissuade them. But I do find them fascinating in so many ways. It's one of those instances where the people that do it seem to ignore or accept the high amount of risk that comes with it for the ultimate prize of looking irreversibly different. But nothing about an eyeball tattoo is a normal tattoo. It's an incredibly new procedure, there's not any scientific research done on it, and even the method of tattooing the eye is different. But it is basically painless if done right. I mean, they are kinda cool, it's just something that I would never dare to do, so I decided to make this video as a vicarious way of living through those who have gotten it, and I inadvertently discovered the untold underbelly that is the iceberg of the body modification world. I found out about things that will give me nightmares, and now you will too. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the deep dark world of eyeball tattoos.
37-year-old Jason Barnum allegedly shot a police officer from a hotel bathroom.
Detectives say Barnum was likely involved in a string of burglaries that happened at night in the Hillside area.
We start this story back in 2012, when eyeball tattoos got their very first shot at the limelight when a man named Jason Barnum, aptly nicknamed Eyeball, was sentenced in Anchorage court for 22 years for shooting at police officers. As Barnum took the stand, it was clear that prosecutors would use his ink against him. He had a crown of thorns around his head, a skull on top, and most notably, one eyeball had been blacked out. For most people, this would be their first instance of seeing eyeball tattoos, and it would forever cloud their judgment of those who had one. But it's not a stereotype that hasn't been associated with tattoos before. Throughout most of history, criminality and the underworld have gone hand in hand with inked people. It's only in recent days that tattoos have become more mainstream and accepted. Nevertheless, Barnum had created this lasting impact on the perception of heavily modified people. It was only upon researching this video that I discovered his case, but the image of him somehow seems eerily familiar. This 2012 case of Jason Barnum, however, is but a blip in the story of eyeball tattoos and their inherent dangers. In fact, for all intents and purposes, Barnum's tattoo seems to have gone perfectly well. We have yet to explore all the times that this experimental procedure has gone wrong, to the point of blindness, loss of an eye, and even... But to get to that part of the story, we need to go a little further back in time to the very first eyeball tattoo. This brings us to the early 2000s with a man known as Luna Cobra, who claims to be the inventor of the eyeball tattoo. Luna is considered an expert and highly renowned in the body modification world. He explains that this eyeball tattoo experiment all started because he had seen a friend post a picture of his eyes photoshopped to look like the characters in Dune. Luna then got that friend and two others to participate in an experiment to get their eyes to actually look like that. I don't really know what those three people were thinking, but to be the pioneers of such an unbelievable procedure confounds me. Like, before I go any further, just think about it. You're about to be the first guy to try and change the color of their eyes. Your friend is saying, "Trust me, bro, I think it'll work." Now, bear in mind, Luna Cobra is not a licensed doctor. He's been into body modifications for quite some time, starting in college where he studied religion and psychology. He did have some tangential experience with medicine, as his brother, who was going to med school, was his roommate. Luna explains that he'd often scour through his brother's anatomy textbook with other med school students to develop new modification techniques. He used this experience to develop a medical-like procedure to tattoo the eyeballs. Now, eyeballs are much different than skin. You can't tattoo them in the same way. Just imagine a needle trying to bounce in and out of your eye. I'm cringing as I speak, man. That's brutal. So what actually happens is a needle goes into a very thin layer of the eye in various injection spots, and a small amount of ink is injected. Surprisingly, it's actually a pretty painless procedure. So Cobra, he comes up with this method, gets his friends and two other willing participants to do the tattoo, and he performs the eye tattoo. Everything seems to work out pretty well, and he spends a couple more years perfecting the technique before unleashing it to the whole world. Luna Cobra has since performed the procedure hundreds of times, and so far none of his clients have experienced any problems. It should also be noted that because there is no long-term study on this procedure, we have no idea what will happen in the future. Eye surgeons have speculated that long-term complications could include inflammation and carcinogenic changes, but again, it's so far down the road we don't really know. But I can't imagine that long-term things would be good for you. And while Luna Cobra seems to have gotten a hang of eyeball tattoos, the procedure itself is not without immediate risks. Luna is very aware of this and on his website clearly explains, even if it's done without damaging the eye, scleral tattooing also makes it harder for your doctor to examine the health of your eye in the future. He also promotes other ways to change your eye's color, like colored contacts. Luna does seem to do everything as safe as possible and even tries to talk clients out of it, but he's not the only one who has attempted the eyeball tattoo. You see, the problems arise from the negligence of copycats. This, after all, is an incredibly exact and precise procedure. If the ink isn't injected in the right place, things could get very bad.
This 24-year-old model decided to tattoo her eyeball. Her eye was swollen shut. She might even lose her eyesight entirely.
This brings us to September of 2017, with the first botched eye tattoo that generated worldwide coverage. This is the case of Catt Gallinger, a 24-year-old Canadian model who, after an eye tattoo, was left partially blind, with clumps of ink around her cornea and ongoing pain. At this point, Gallinger had already had over 20 tattoos, and had even chose to get her tongue split, but she let her then-boyfriend, who was a body modification artist, perform the procedure. He was confident and she trusted him. But she shouldn't have. In a now viral Facebook post, Gallinger explains that from the very beginning of the procedure, he was making mistakes. The ink wasn't diluted. He used too large of a needle and injected way too much ink. Immediately, she felt something was wrong. There was pain, and that night her eyes swelled shut. All of her friends who had done this before said that they were healed and back to normal within a week. She found herself on week 3 still just as bad, and finally, she went to the hospital. The ink had caused her eye to swell. She was partially blind, and the ink had somehow began to seep out as tears. To this day, she has still not fully recovered vision in that eye. Now this sounds terrifying, but Gallinger was actually lucky to come out of it with her eye intact. Because also that year, 2017, a real bad year for eyeballs, 2 doctors reported a case at the University of Alberta where a man who had undergone the tattoo had to get his entire eye removed. According to the story, the 24-year-old man underwent the procedure and experienced an immediate pain and sudden loss of vision when the tattoo artist was injecting ink into his eye. 3 days later, he went to the hospital. Doctors discovered that the ink had been injected too deep into the eye, actually damaging the lens. To make matters worse, they had also discovered that the ink had been contaminated with bacteria. Ultimately, 2 surgeries, multiple procedures, and a handful of antibiotics were administered to try and deal with the complications. All that, however, was still not enough to control the infection, and the entire eye had to be removed. When doctors removed the eye, they found that the retina and inside of the eye were stained with ink. So even if the eye had been saved, this man would have dealt with serious vision issues. And let me just say again how bad 2017 was for eyeball tattoos, because there is yes another case. This time in Warsaw, Poland, we have the 21-year-old Aleksandra Sadowska, who after an improper eyeball tattoo was left completely blind. So Aleksandra wanted to get the whites of her eyes tattooed black. She found a studio close to home online and contacted the artist, Piotr A. Piotr claimed to be experienced in the procedure, having done it dozens of times and even had a medical background. Both of these assertions turned out to be false, and complications developed immediately for Aleksandra. The tattoo artist had inserted the needle too deep into Aleksandra's right eye and had used the wrong type of ink, one meant for skin and not inside the eye. She started experiencing severe pain in her eyes immediately after the procedure, but the artist had told her that everything was normal and just recommended painkillers to cope. Things, however, did not improve. Her right eye, the one that Piotr A. had poked too deep into, was extensively damaged. Aleksandra underwent several corrective surgeries to save the eye, but ultimately had to get it removed. The left eye wasn't doing much better either. Within that eye, the damage was also deep and extensive. She would eventually develop glaucoma and advanced cataracts that left her with an incredibly small and blurry field of view, which may get even worse in the future. Aleksandra ended up suing her tattoo artist for negligence. He faced 3 years in prison, but in the end was fined £28,000 and told to perform 30 hours of community service per month for a year. Now, you'd think that these cases alone would ward off anyone from attempting to even get this procedure, but you're wrong. In fact, there are some people that get a botched eyeball tattoo, go blind temporarily, and for some reason decide to run the dice again and get another eyeball tattoo. This exact thing happened to the most tattooed woman in Australia, Amber Luke.
The eyeball was penetrated with the ink. It felt like he grabbed 10 shards of glass and rubbed it in my eye. If your eyeball procedure is done correctly, you're not supposed to go blind at all. I was blind for 3 weeks.
Amber underwent a quick transformation over the course of about 7 years. She got over 200 tattoos, split her tongue, and tattooed her eyeballs blue. It was that last procedure where she had the most complications. Amber claims that during that first eyeball procedure, it had felt like glass shards were being rubbed over her eyes. The artist that had done it had gone too deep. She had tears of blue ink and went blind for 3 weeks before miraculously making a recovery. Amber then went on to swear that she was done with risky body modifications like this for the rest of her life. That turned out to be untrue. As a way of dealing with the trauma of the first procedure, Amber decided to get the same procedure again. This time she flew out to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and fortunately the tattoo went perfectly fine. And while there are plenty of people who have undergone the eyeball tattoo procedure and come out of it seemingly unscathed, I think it sets a bad precedent for the tattoo artists and clients that want to do it without any real medical training or research respectively. As is the case for 33-year-old Anaya Peterson from Belfast, Ireland.
After 1 year, I had a really bad allergic reaction to the ink in my eyeballs. I had to stay in hospital for a week and had to be put on steroid tablets.
Anaya got her first tattoo at 23 and has since been steadily filling up her body. Over the years, she also delved into the body modification world, getting her tongue split and her ear stretched. Then she had seen the aforementioned Amber Luke get her eyeball tattoo and loved them. She looked up to Amber and considered her an inspiration, so Anaya pursued this procedure as well. Originally, Anaya's 5-year-old daughter told her not to get the tattoos, warning her that she would go blind. She opted to go down the middle path, tattooing just one eye blue. And initially, it seemed that everything was working out fine. For months after the right eye tattoo, she had no complications besides some dryness and headaches. It was at this point, though, that she opted to do the other eye and tattooed it purple. This is when things took a turn for the worse. About maybe like a month after that left tattoo, she woke up one day with incredibly swollen eyelids and things only got worse from there. The doctors diagnosed her with tattoo sarcoidosis, an autoimmune disease that can lead to sympathetic ophthalmia, which caused inflammation and could lead to partial or total loss of vision. Anaya started going blind. When asked, she said that she regrets her choice of color and not just sticking to one eye. She states, "I don't have 20/20 vision anymore. From a distance, I can't see features of faces. If I didn't have my eyeballs tattooed, I wouldn't be having this problem."
Let me just show you what I see. Like, as you can see here, it's like a smudge in the vision. So this is what I see. I see like smudges everywhere. And I'm going to show you the next things that I see along with the smudge. So can you see the black spots? These are called eye floaters. So this is something that's also in my vision. It is having an impact on my daily life, hence why I have a lot of professionals who support me. Yeah, whether or not this will go away entirely, we really don't know.
And the absolute most terrifying part of this procedure is its irreversibility. If done wrong or you simply don't like the outcome, there is no way to get the ink out of your eye. This is essentially true for most extreme body modifications. I'm not telling you to not do these things. I think everyone should be able to do whatever they want as long as they are aware of the risks. But the more extreme you go, the higher the chances of something going amiss. This leads us to the deepest part of the eyeball tattoo iceberg, which is the deadly dangers of extreme body modifications. You remember Luna Cobra, the inventor of the eyeball tattoo? Well, he was recently involved in a legal battle involving a fellow body modification artist, Brandon Lee Russell, whose work had led to grievous bodily harm and death. This is the part of the story where things get a little graphic, so if this type of thing makes you uncomfortable or queasy, I would just skip on to the next video. But before you do that, make sure you subscribe, because these videos are cool, right? And if you watched it this far, that means you liked it, hopefully. Now, it is important to note that Luna Cobra was not the one performing these procedures. He in fact was being charged for assisting or coaching Russell in the operation. Cobra was found to be not guilty as he arrived at the studio where this procedure was performed hours after everything was done. He just happened to be connected to this story by happenstance. Russell, on the other hand, was being charged with manslaughter, female mutilation, and grievous bodily harm with intent, relating to 3 separate women. One woman sought a case after her tummy tuck was botched, and this was the lightest of the 3 cases. The case Cobra was involved in was the mutilation one. I'm going to try and spare as much detail as possible. Firstly, this was a consenting operation from both parties, though I still think it's an illegal thing to do. The woman who was on a quest to look like a mermaid wanted her bottom area to be flat, so she asked to have her removed, which Russell did by using a branding iron to burn it off. Now, I don't know about you, and I'm no body modification specialist, but if someone asked me to remove their and if I agreed, I think I would have a better method than to burn it off. Afterwards, the woman stated that too much had been removed, and she now has to endure daily pain because of it. The last of the 3 women is the most tragic story. She had gone to Russell in hopes of getting a plastic snowflake embedded under her skin. These are known as subdermal implants and are pretty common in the body modification world, but when done improperly can lead to disastrous results. In this case, the woman was told that everything would be okay, but the implant eventually got infected, causing her to go septic, and she passed away soon after. I want to end this video by saying that as an adult, you are allowed to do whatever you want. A lot of these procedures, I will admit, do look cool, but they come with inherent risks. Heck, even Luna Cobra, the inventor of the eyeball tattoo, will try to talk you out of getting one if you approach him. So, do whatever, be whatever, we're all autonomous. Just make sure you subscribe to this channel. And, if you want to get an eyeball tattoo, make sure you do your research and make an informed decision. Okay, bye.